Thanks for joining us. And today we're going to talk about how to attain Samadhi in Kriya Yoga. So Samadhi is seen as the pinnacle of achievement in Kriya Yoga, and in Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, it is the 8th step, if you will, of the Ashtanga wheel. So in Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, they talk about the Nama Niyama, that is the moral do's and don'ts. Then there is asana, which is a stable posture for meditation. Then the pranayama, which is some sort of life force control, normally done through a form of intentional breathing, which then yields a state of internalization called pratyahara. This leads to a state of internalized concentration, which is called dharana. The dharana turns into a state of absorption, which is called dhyan, and then dhyan turns into samadhi, which is thought about in terms of a superconscious awareness. And so in Kriya Yoga, they normally have two distinctions in Samadhi. They have the Savikalpa Samadhi, also called the Samprajna Samadhi, the Samadhi with difference, meaning that one has an experience, an inner experience, and one can still distinguish oneself or sense of oneself from that experience. So the Savikalpa or Samprajnata Samadhi, and then the Nirvikalpa or the Asamprajna Samadhi, the Samadhi without difference, where one can't discern a difference between the state and one's sense of self, if you will. To be able to move in the direction of Samadhi, you need to follow those stages outlined by Patanjali in the Yoga Sutras. And so Kriya Yoga specializes in pranayama, in particular the Kriya pranayama, which is a form of intentional breathing that brings us into this low idle state. It induces pratyahara, internalization. So doing Kriya pranayama correctly is really important because it starts to bring your awareness inside. And if your mind is distracted outside with both sensations and mental impressions, internal mental impressions, it's very difficult to meditate, very difficult to have concentration, very difficult to have absorption, and very difficult to have samadhi. So the Kriya Pranayama really is a very expedient way to help to draw us within. What normally people will experience in Kriya, if they have been doing the Kriya Pranayama practice correctly, is that they start to experience signs of the internalization. So they can feel their body receding from their awareness, right? So they may feel sort of tingling sensations and then the body disappears. As well, at the same time as their body is receding in their awareness from doing their practice, they also have the sense of the mind becoming more still. It's less likely to follow the inclinations of thoughts that are coming in. So there's this shift that happens within the unfolding process where the verbal formations start to cease. So one is not using intentional thought anymore. The mind becomes still. And so this is part of the transition into a deeper state when you reach that. In Buddhist practices, they call this the second jhana, the cessation of the verbal formations, or vitakka and vichara. What that leads then in experience of this sort of internalized contentment, if you will, where one is experiencing a calm abiding. This is really a stage of internalization. What one experienced during the pratyahara process as it unfolds towards the state of dharana, the state of concentration. So as these things are happening in the body, the mind is becoming more still, the breath is becoming more subtle, especially when one has stopped doing the Kriya Pranayama and sitting in the state of paravasta, which is the after effect poised state of Kriya. As the body is starting to recede in awareness, the mind is becoming very still, and the breath is becoming much more subtle. What normally happens in Kriya Yoga is that one starts to have a very subtle breath which manifests into the tranquil breath. And the tranquil breath is when the breath becomes so slight that it disappears from your awareness and you're not even aware that it's there. What can happen at that point is you get into the state of dharana, which is this internalized concentration where the distractions just sort of disappear. The bodily distractions disappear, the breath distractions disappear, and the mind distractions disappear so that one is internalized. Dharana means concentration, but it's not a kind of pinpointed concentration. It's a lack of distractions kind of concentration where one is just present in this very still state. And in Buddhist practices, they talk about this as the 4th jhana, where there is a purity of mindfulness due to equanimity, meaning that the mind becomes stable and so that one is aware of where the mind's attention is moving. In a way, this state is akin to sitting in an airport waiting room for your flight, and the flight is your flight into absorption and into samadhi. And so many Kriya yogis will get to this state and seem to be able to go no further. And there could be a variety of reasons for this. So there are different Kriya Yoga lineages, as we know, and certain Kriya Yoga lineages focus on certain things that don't lead to the best results for being able to attain a state of Samadhi, to get into Samadhi. And one of the things with some schools is they focus on the spiritual eye. And so they use this focus of concentration at the point between the eyebrows and turning the eyes upwards, which is a version of Shambhavi Mudra. And it's a concentration technique. The challenge is that if you want to go into Samadhi, you cannot concentrate in that way. You cannot use pinpointed concentration. So often folks who are focusing on the spiritual, trying to see the light, the internal light, if you will, and focus on it, are using too much concentration to be able to go into Samadhi. Because in Samadhi, you need to let go and open yourself. You need to have this spacious, open awareness. So one of the remedies for somebody who uses that kind of technique is to change Shambhavi Mudra a little bit. And what it is to raise the eyes upwards slightly and to engage the peripheral vision. And what that does is it puts your brain, it activates the right hippocampus in your brain to get you into a spatial awareness. And that's what you need. You need to have this spacious, open awareness to be able to go into Samadhi. And that is one of the remedies that you can use if you've learned a very concentration-focused version of Kriya Yoga, is just to relax, to open up your sense of spatial awareness by engaging your peripheral vision with your eyes closed, obviously, and then see if that helps you to get into a more expansive state of awareness. And so that is normally the first state of Samadhi that people experience, is this feeling of expansion, of infinite spaciousness. And so that can only come about when you are relaxed, when you're not focusing on one thing in particular, but you're just opening up the field, if you will. Now, one of the things that you can use, a practice that we teach at Modern Kriya, is something called right collectedness. And this comes from the teachings of the Buddha, sometimes called right concentration. Really what it is instead of being a pinpointed concentration, that you open your sense of spaciousness in your meditation, that your mind is collected around the object of your meditation. It is not pinpoint on one particular aspect. And what it does is when you have a pinpointed concentration, it suppresses things from coming up. And it basically delays your meditation process from unfolding naturally. When your mind or your awareness is collected around your meditation object, it might be the sense of paravasta, what's happening in your body as you're going into a deeper state. Instead of being concentrated on your meditation object and squeezing it, holding it, trying to make something happen, to push it, if you will, when you let go in that way, things can spontaneously happen. And so when you have the sense of open spaciousness, you may become aware of some impediments that you actually have that are holding you back from progressing into deeper meditation. And these things are rooted in desire. So it may be that you want to have Samadhi. And so you're clinging to that idea, you have an attachment to it, and there's resulting attention in your body and your mind. You may not realize that because you've been trying really hard in your Kriya Yoga practice, you've been concentrating at the spiritual eye, and then you're sitting in dharana and nothing is happening, but you're clinging, you're attached to the idea of results in your meditation, and you need to recognize that and let it go. Well, you can only recognize it if you have an open, spacious awareness. You're like, oh, I have this tension. What is that about? Oh, I'm so want to get into Samadhi. Well, guess what you need to do? You recognize that that feeling is there. You let it go, releasing tension in body and mind, smile, and return back to the object of your meditation. It might be the feeling of paravasta or whatever feeling that you're cultivating, you're collecting your awareness around. It could be a feeling of devotion in your heart. And you just let things go and be open. And normally what will happen, if you're able to let go enough for every little impediment that comes up, and you can keep letting it go and keeping that open, spacious awareness, suddenly you'll find things transforming and you'll get this feeling of this expansion happening naturally. It will unfold in your meditation. Now, this could be really exciting if you've never experienced it before, and so there may be a tendency to say, oh my God, I'm expanding my awareness. And there you go, attachment again. And what has happened? It stops, and then you're back in the same place. So what do? You recognize it. oh, okay, I'm attached. I'm clinging to this feeling. I want results. I need to recognize it, let it go, release tension in body and mind, smile, return back to the object of meditation. And then you just relax, you're open and spacious and awareness. You have the feelings of loving kindness or whatever you feel in your heart if it's devotion, and then just allow things to unfold naturally. And eventually what will happen is you will transition into a state of samadhi. You will get usually that first experience of expansion in all directions. You get this feeling of infinite spaciousness. And that's an amazing feeling to have. And that is normally what people experience as the first samadhi. And so really what tends to hold people back in Kriya Yoga is that they are either too concentrated, or they have too many expectations, or they're clinging to things, they're attached to things and they don't know it. And because they're so concentrated from doing Kriya Pranayama and then focusing at the spiritual eye, they don't recognize that they're clinging to this stuff. So you need to recognize that tension and let it go. And that will allow you to unfold naturally into the higher progressions of meditation. There is that infinite spaciousness, right? The infinite space samadhi. There is also a samadhi where you experience that the infinite spaciousness is filled with infinite consciousness. They can have a very blissful feeling, right? Normally people, when they have this feeling, they feel like they've connected with their true essence, the soul, right? The Atman. They're like, this is my true nature. And they can experience that, and it can be very enjoyable. There are also other higher samadhi states that go beyond just that state of bliss. And then one can go into a higher state of samadhi, which is nothingness, and experience that, so one is aware. And there are even deeper states. The highest state in samadhi that you can go is something called nirbija samadhi, which is also called animita samadhi, where there is no object of meditation at all, not even the mind. And this is a very rarefied state. But the thing is about samadhi, some people think, especially in Kriya Yoga community, that is the pinnacle of achievement, but it is not. It is not final enlightenment. It is not enlightenment, but it is the deepest state that you can go in meditation, is that nirbija samadhi. So when people experience samadhi and they start to become confident and moving through the different levels of samadhi, they can really get a good understanding for the way that their mind works. But at the end of the day, for any spiritual development, just attaining states of samadhi is not the end goal. It is spiritual evolution. And what does that mean? That means changing things permanently within oneself, letting go of the junk, if you will, the karmic junk, clearing out one's consciousness so that one can see things as they truly are, have a true awakening. That is the real goal of spiritual development. So samadhi can be a tool for you to get in that direction, but is not the final goal. So if you have any questions about this video, feel free to send me an email at info@modernkriya.com. Also check our website at modernkriya.com and our YouTube channel. So thanks for joining us, and we will see you next time.